Pro Scolae Latinae Brooklyniensis, provisore odie vos libenter accipio. On behalf of the headmaster of the Brooklyn Latin School, I would like to welcome discipuli, magistry, staff, parents, siblings, and anyone from the TBLS community joining our live stream to the first public declamation of the 2020-2021 school year. Declamation is an ancient tradition which holds a central place in Brooklyn Latin academics and school culture. People across time and across the earth have recognized the importance of words and ideas in bringing communities together. At Brooklyn Latin, we are no exception, and we express our gratitude to the 4 discipuli who will be declaiming their pieces live so that we may preserve this valuable school tradition. Please mentally prepare yourself as you would before declamation in person to be attentive and be open to being surprised, entertained, and inspired by this diverse selection of pieces chosen by your fellow discipuli. Without any further ado, incipiamos, let us begin. Our first declaimer from class 2 is Amina Katawi.
All right, here, let me just adjust my camera real quick. Okay, all right, there we go. The Helsinki bus station is an excerpt from an interview with photographer Arnold Raphael Mencken. His advice is relevant to any artist or creative thinker who's disappointed in the quality of their work. When we are discouraged by our lack of success and progress in our craft, Mencken reminds us to stay on the bus. After all, that's the only way we'll get somewhere new. Good afternoon. My name is Amina Katawi, and I will now declaim the Helsinki bus station. The Helsinki bus station, let me describe what happens there. Some 24 platforms are arranged in a square at the heart of the city. At the head of each platform is a sign posting the numbers of the buses that leave from that particular platform. The bus numbers might read as follows: 21, 71, 58, 33, and 19. Each bus takes the same route out of the city for about a kilometer, stopping at bus stop intervals along the way where the same numbers are again repeated: 21, 71, 58, 33, and 19. Now let's say, again, metaphorically speaking, that one bus stop represents 1 year in the life of a photographer, meaning that the third bus stop represents 3 years of photographic activity. Okay, so you've been working for 3 years making platinum studies of nudes. Call it bus 21. You take those 3 years of work on the nude to the Museum of Fine Arts Boston, where the curator asks you if you're familiar with the works of Irving Penn. His bus 71 was on the same line. Or you take them to a gallery in Paris and are reminded to check out Bill Brandt, bus 58, and so on. Shocked, you realize that what you've been doing for 3 years, others have already done. So you hop off the bus, you grab a cab because life is short, and you head straight back to the bus station looking for another platform. This time you spend 3 years at it and $3 grand and produce a series of works that elicits the same response. Haven't you seen the work of Richard Misrak? Or if there's steamy black and white 8x10 camera views of palm trees swaying off a beachfront, haven't you seen the work of Sally Mann? So once again, you get off the bus, you grab the cab, you race back, and you find a new platform. This goes on all your creative life, always showing new work, always being compared to others. What to do? It's simple. You stay on the bus. You stay on the fucking bus. Why? Because when you do, in time, you will begin to see a difference. The buses that move out of Helsinki stay on the same line, but only for a while. Then they start to separate, each bus heading off in its own unique direction. Bus 33 suddenly goes north, bus 19 southwest. Maybe 21 and 71 dovetail one another for a while, but soon they split off as well. Irving Penn is headed elsewhere. It's the separation that makes all the difference. And once you start to see that difference in your work from the work that you so admire, it's time to look for your breakthrough. Suddenly your work starts to get noticed. Now you are working more on your own, making more of the difference between your work and what influenced it. Your vision takes off. And as the years mount up and as your work begins to pile up, it won't be long before the critics start to become very intrigued, not just by what separates you from a Ralph Gibson or a Sally Mann, but by what you did when you first got started. You regained the whole bus route, in fact. The vintage prints made 20 years ago are suddenly reevaluated and, for what it's worth, start selling at a premium. At the end of the line, where the bus comes to rest and the driver gets out for a smoke, or better yet, a cup of coffee, that's when the work is done. It could be the end of your career as an artist. It could be the end of your life for that matter. But your total output is now all there before you. The early imitations, the breakthroughs, the peaks and valleys, the closing masterpieces, all with the stamp of your unique vision. Why? Because you stayed on the bus. Thank you.
Our next declaimer from class 2 is Isala Lake.
Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. Okay. Is it loud? Sorry, is it loud enough? Because my audio's been weird. Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Isala Lake, and today I will be declaiming What Makes Generation Z So Different, a speech given by a 19-year-old entrepreneur named Harry Beard. Harry collaborates with many well-known UK brands as a Gen Z consultant, and he was named UK's second best entrepreneur. Harry's work is valued because of the unique perspective he brings to companies who gear their products towards Generation Z. As you well know, we accept only the highest quality materials, and if we can't find exactly what we are looking for at existing companies, we create our own. There are many contributing factors that Generation Z has access to, which allow us to found businesses and get our names out on a much wider scale than previous generations, social media being the primary one. It is entirely possible to run a business at 16 years old from the comfort of your own home and conduct all sales on Instagram. This is a luxury unique to Gen Z, which puts us in a position to show our strength, aptitude, and power in ways never seen before. I will now declaim. Leaders of the past would love to be in our shoes. Leaders of the past would love to have the opportunities that Generation Z has, to live beyond the box. Every generation has had individuals who've lived beyond the box. People who did things differently have subsequently changed the world, whether it be through music, running a business, or leading a movement gripping change. These individuals transform the way humans behave. Not many of us in this room would have lived through the groundbreaking events of the 20th century, but we all live with and benefit from the changes it brought about. I'm sure we all admire the works of Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, how both they and the civil rights movement as a whole gripped the world, creating meaningful and lasting change. They are just two examples of people who lived beyond the box. So here's a question for you. Can you imagine the impact leaders of the past would have had if they were born within Generation Z? For the first time ever, a young person is able to derive an income from their passion. I mean, previously, if you were 16 and you wanted to make an income from music, let's say, you'd have had to go busking on a street corner, practically begging for cash. But now, we don't need to ask. Our passions, in this case music, are being seen by enough people to be deserving of an earning in its own right. And I want to reiterate, this is not uncommon. One example would be a friend who's had a piece of music go platinum on a streaming site, and this has led to him winning a prestigious place at the world's leading music school. He was just pursuing his passion, using the opportunities available to him. And now, he creates music on a professional basis. But it's not just in music where we are following our dreams, and our dreams are subsequently gaining us a following. We are seeing Gen Zers pursue modeling, acting, journalism, comedy, even athletics. And these are just some examples of passions and potential careers that Generation Z are pursuing, all while still in school. Gen Zers now, thanks to online platforms, are able to show their passions and knowledge for a fear without age discrimination. But it goes beyond that. It's not just how we look, it's how we're programmed. It's not just the 2D, it's the 3D. We are programmed so differently to any past generation. We are growing up super savvy. We are all marketing experts, and we've all been developing a personal brand from the moment we joined social media. Generation Z campaigns are a groundswell of genuineness. Now, thousands of new Gen Z campaigns do start every single day because it is so easy to do so. So a lot of what is produced is often empty. By that, I mean it lacks substance. How many times have you seen a company use charity as a vehicle in order for them to gain hype and sales? So if you're a Gen Zer or someone looking to attract Gen Z, you need to be really careful because Gen Z is more astute than ever. It is said that we have an 8-second attention span. So nothing generic is going to stand out. If they BS, we swipe off. So if you're a musician looking to gain a following, or a business owner looking to gain sales, or maybe you're the leader of a movement gripping change, you need to be socially aware, promoting a 100% authentic message, and that message needs to be consistent, because if it's not, Gen Z will see right through you. Some people may question, is this opportunity for almost everyone to create a campaign actually a good thing? But in my eyes, it is truly awesome. Thank you.
Our next declaimer from class 2 is Axel Mensa.
Salvete omnes. Jennifer Finney Boylan is an American author and a transgender activist who has won the Lambda Literary Award for her works celebrating the LGBTQ community. In her book, She's Not Here, A Life in Two Genders, Boylan describes her journey in finding her identity, from a young child not knowing who they were or how to perceive themselves, to an adult fully embracing herself for who she is. Through no fault of our own, many of us are not exposed to works relating to the LGBTQ community, which brings us to my declamation today. I would like to use this opportunity to enlighten you all on a topic which our society often tries to suppress. Ladies and gentlemen, I, Axel Mensa, will now declaim She's Not Here, A Life in Two Genders by Jennifer Finney Boylan. Sometimes I played a game in the woods called Girl Planet. In it, I was an astronaut who had crashed in an uninhabited world. There was a large fallen tree I used as the crash and destroyed rocket. The thing was, though, that anyone who breathed the air on this planet turned into a girl. There was nothing you could do about it. It just happened. My clothes turned to girls' clothes too, which should give you an indication of exactly how powerful the atmosphere was. It changed their clothes. Once female, I walked through the cobblestone woods, past the abandoned houses until I reached Governor Earl's mansion, which I started to try to fix up. It took years, but eventually I had a nice little place put together. By the time the astronauts from planet Earth came to rescue me, I had grown into a mature woman, a college professor, occasionally playing piano for blues bands, kissing my children goodnight as they lay asleep in their beds. My rescuers would ask me, "We're looking for James Finney Boylan, the novelist. We found his rocket all smashed up back there in the woods. Have you seen him now?" "I'm sorry," I'd say. "He's gone now." I did not know the word transsexual back then, and the word transgender had not yet been invented. I had heard the word transvestite, but it didn't seem to apply to me. It sounded kind of creepy, like some kind of centipede or a grub. In my mind, I sometimes confused it with the words that described cave formations. What was it again? Transvestites grew to the bottom of the cave from the top. Transvestmites grew up from the bottom. But even if I had known the right definitions for these words, I'm not sure it would have made much difference to me. Even now, a conversation about transgender people resembles nothing so much as a conversation about aliens. Do you think there really are transgender people? Has the government known about them for years and kept the whole business a secret? Where do they come from? What do they want? Have they been secretly living among us for years? On the day the hurricane hit, I had taken a walk underneath the boardwalk. It was as close to infinity as I could imagine under there. The rows of pylon and boardwalk stretched as far as I could see. All around me were the echoes of the ocean, the howling wind, the smells of creosote and tar. I had taken a big walk, and on the big walk, I was going to try and solve whatever it was that was wrong with me. I walked down the dark tunnel underneath the place in the boardwalk, trying to figure out what the deal was with being alive. I knew I wasn't a girl. By then it was clear that girls and I were different. Yet, clearly enough, I wasn't a boy either. What was I? What was going to happen to me if I didn't stop wanting to be a girl all the time? That afternoon, as the hurricane blew up, I sat under the boardwalk, trying to think about what I could do to solve the problem. This whole wanting to be a girl all the time thing was eating up a lot of my time, but what could a person do if she wanted something impossible? But then I thought, maybe you could be cured by love. Thank you.
Our final declaimer from class 2 is Hengzi Zhu.
Almost 80 years ago, on December 7th, 1941, Japan and its puppets suddenly and deliberately attacked the United States of America in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. The United States have been at peace with that nation, but Japan have been brutally occupying parts of China, and this attack was committed to protect its aggressions in the Pacific. On the following day, U.S. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt delivered a brief but powerful speech to Congress and the nation via radio, reporting and denouncing the attack on Pearl Harbor and requesting Congress to declare war on the Japanese Empire. Shortly after President Roosevelt's speech, Congress voted unanimously to go to war with Japan, pulling the US into conflict with the Axis powers, including Nazi Germany. This speech is relevant today because it teaches us to never forget those whom we have lost so that we can have our democracy and wealth today. And we shall never surrender to fear during times of crisis, for the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Sawete, my name is Hengzi Zhu, and today I will declaim A Date Which Will Live in Infamy by Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. The United States was at peace with that nation, and at the solicitation of Japan, was still in conversation with its government and its emperor, looking toward the maintenance of peace in the Pacific. Indeed, 1 hour after Japanese air squadrons had commenced bombing in the American island of Oahu, the Japanese ambassador delivered to our Secretary of State a formal reply to a recent American message. And while this reply stated that it seemed useless to continue the existing diplomatic negotiations, it contained no threat or hint of war or an armed attack. It will be recorded that the distance of Hawaii from Japan makes it obvious that the attack was planned many days or even weeks ago. During the intervening time, the Japanese government have deliberately sought to deceive the United States by false statements and expressions of hope for continued peace. The attack yesterday has caused severe damage to American naval, and military forces. I regret to tell you that very many American lives have been lost. Yesterday, the Japanese government also launched an attack against Malaya. Last night, Japanese forces attacked Hong Kong. Last night, Japanese forces attacked Guam. Last night, Japanese forces attacked the Philippine Islands. And this morning, the Japanese attacked Midway Island. Japan has therefore undertaken a surprise offensive extending throughout the Pacific area. The facts of yesterday and today speak for themselves. The people of the United States have already formed their opinions and well understand the implications to the very life and safety of our nation. As Commander-in-Chief of the Army and Navy, I have directed that all measures be taken for our defense, that always for our whole nation remember the character of the onslaught against us. No matter how long it may take us to overcome this premeditated invasion, the American people, in their righteous might, will win due to absolute victory. I assert that we will not only defend ourselves to the uttermost, but will make it very certain that this form of treachery shall never again endanger us. Hostilities exist. There is no blinking at the fact that our people, our territory, and our interests are in grave danger. With confidence in our armed forces, with the unbounding determination, we will gain the inevitable triumph. So help us God. I ask the Congress declare that since the dastardly and unprovoked attack by Japan on Sunday, December 7, 1941, a state of war has existed between the United States and the Japanese Empire. Thank you.
I would now invite all declaimers back on camera for applause. On behalf of the entire Brooklyn Latin community, I thank today's declaimers for their performances and the work that went into them. Let's all take a moment now, individually, to reflect on a thought, a turn of phrase, or an expression of emotion which captured our imagination and which we will take with us into our lives after today. We encourage those of you who are moved by something you heard today to consider participating in public declamation in the future. Find a piece of excellent writing that expresses something meaningful to you, something which you think is important for your school community to hear. We are eager to have pieces from any genre or topic and from many different styles of writing. Now, at the close of this venerable school tradition, and with the words of our declaimers still in our ears and our minds, Curate ut vetialis. Take care